At this time, if you could mute your cell phones or get your volumes all the way down, that would be greatly appreciated. Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to all you fall sport athletes. Let's give yourselves a hand for getting out here tonight. First of all, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. As always, want to encourage you to do what you always do, which is give respect to the speakers. We have two fantastic speakers for you tonight. So I'd like to welcome you, everybody. I'm Rob DeMuro. I'm the Associate Athletic Director. Before we begin, as we begin, we'll begin with a prayer. So let's bow our heads, please. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, thank you for bringing us together tonight. Please bless our families and friends, some currently gathered in the gym, and all those not with us tonight. Bless the student athletes as they continue to strive to better themselves. Please keep them safe and allow them to grow as people as well as athletes. Help them each to strive to be the best person they can be. Lord, please bless the coaches and help them stay strong in their leadership. Watch over them as they help our players to overcome the many challenges that will arise this season. Finally, thank you for bringing us together in such a great place where so many people care about us and our well-being. We are very lucky and very thankful. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Our first speaker tonight is our school therapist, Mrs. Juliana Gallant.
I want to start every school day like that. Okay, I'm only going to be with you for about 10 minutes because we have a really important keynote speaker. But Mr. Borowski asked me to talk to you just for the first 10 minutes or so about particularly, well, he called it in his title, the evils of social media. Does that mean that we think social media is evil? No, not at all. I would be a hypocrite to think that because I participate in, I have a Facebook, I have an Instagram, I have a Twitter account. But you have to use those things responsibly or else, yes, there can be evils in social media. So what I want to do really tonight is encourage you to be cyberspace savvy. That means that, if students will roll their eyes at me when they hear me say this. Say, I've heard that a million times, Mrs. Gallant. Whatever you put out online or by text is public and permanent. I know as a therapist and a former adolescent that at your age you want privacy, but I promise you, this is not the place to find privacy. People say, oh, well, Snapchat. It disappears in 10 seconds. But guess what? Somebody takes a screenshot of it, it's out there forever. I've seen kids get in trouble for something they posted on Facebook for less than 5 minutes. They realized it was a mistake, they deleted it, but by then somebody had taken a screenshot of it, and they were in trouble. So I want you to really, really try to keep that in the front of your minds when using social media. I'm not telling you not to use it, but I'm telling you to use it responsibly. It is not private. Why does this pertain particularly to student athletes? Well, you guys are, you're our leaders. By the mere fact that you're a student athlete, where are my freshmen that I just talked to? When you're a student athlete on campus, a lot of times that gives you popularity. And freshmen, popularity gives you what? Starts with a P. Not money yet. Power, okay? All right. I can tell that you listen to me really well. But The truth is that you guys have a lot, you've worked really hard to be here, and congratulations. You have made your teams, you've shown commitment, a lot of you have aspirations to get to the next level, but you're also, eyes are on you, all eyes are on you. Your peers look up to you, you have fans, you have people who want to follow you because you are who you are. And so you have to be very, very careful, because guess who else is looking for you out there in cyberspace? Coaches, colleges, etc. So what that means is that if you are just exchanging a funny banter between you and a friend, and it is sexual, or it's racial, or it's talking about, what kind of fun you're going to have at this party on Saturday night, they can decide, well, you know what? We're not even going to pursue that student, because not only do we want them to have a certain, academic standard where they can keep up with our school, do we want them to be able to participate in our team to an excellent level, but we want them to represent our school in terms of character. So you have to, you have a lot of responsibility when you use social media, because all eyes are on you, including coaches and colleges, and they will decide not to give you that scholarship because there's 100 people right behind you who aren't posting those things. They're making a financial investment in you when they give you a scholarship. They're saying, is this person worth $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, honestly? And we want them to represent our school completely. And so do we at Chaminade. We want our student athletes, we're really proud of you, but we want you out there in cyberspace also representing us really, really well. Also know that, in terms of our school policy, most of you already know that we have very strict rules about about cyberbullying, about sending inappropriate pictures. If you're suspended for doing those things, you will, that colleges will find that out. And, we don't want you to have to go there. In addition, especially with the inappropriate pictures, the partially clothed pictures, things like that, the exchange of those, in particular, the law is coming down on, because it's been causing a lot of emotional distress to the kids whose pictures get sent around without their permission, because they sent it maybe to somebody they trusted, and that person sent it to 10 of their friends, and that person sent it to 10 of their friends. So the police are coming down on that hard. They're considering it child pornography, because it's usually a picture of a minor, and you, the owners of your phones, which means your parents, can get in trouble legally for that. And if you're found guilty, then that's a lifetime where it follows you. So I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I just do want to remind you that as Chaminade students, as Chaminade student athletes, we really are proud of you, and we want you to succeed, and we don't want you to have social media be an evil thing for you and come back and bite you in one way or the other. So there's lots of rules. I gave the freshmen lots of rules in 3 hours, but I'm going to leave you with 2 rules of thumb. One is pause before you post. Think about it. Is this a good idea? Pause before you take the picture, send the picture, but pause before you post. And the second one is, ask yourself, would I want my grandma to see this picture or read this post? All right. If that's all right with you, then you should be okay. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to our other speakers.
Let's give Miss Gallant a big hand, please. Let's give it up. Such amazing messages. Amazing messages. Internalize those. Think about those. You know, 2 ways to learn those lessons. Either take the advice of the amazing people in front of you, or get burned the other way. So think about that, okay, and put yourself there. Our next speaker is Mr. Ray Lokar. Ray is the Southern California lead trainer for the Positive Coaching Alliance. Coach Lok has coached a variety of sports in Southern California over the last 25 years at the youth, high school, and college levels, and has worked countless camps and clinics during that time with your ages and ages 8 to 18. He is currently the city director of the Covina Valley chapter of the National Junior Basketball. Ray has coached his son and 2 daughters who have gone on to play college athletics, and he has a young son still playing youth sports. Coach Lokar was the head basketball coach of the 2002 CIF champions while at Bishop Ahmad High School, and is the past president of the Southern California Interscholastic Basketball Coaches Association. Ray was actively involved in the business development of the basketball training software called the ACE IntelliGym. Ray is also the director of the Basketball for All Foundation that provides a variety of lessons, camps, clinics, competitions, and events for the benefit of Southern California basketball community. Ray has a coaching youth basketball and a coaching youth baseball DVD series available at championshipproducts.com. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring up Mr. Ray Lokar.
I told Mr. Jamiro I will have no use for that podium at all. We'll be roaming around a little bit. Thanks for listening to the shameless plug and written promotion by our PR guy. All that means is I've been a bunch of places and done a lot of things and have sat in a lot of chairs as a student athlete, as a parent of student athletes like yourself, and as a coach at a bunch of different levels. So I want to come at you from all of those different areas and share some things I've picked up along the way. Positive Coaching Alliance. Why is Positive Coaching Alliance talking to you? We started out talking just to coaches. And then we realized that if we talk to coaches and give them all sorts of great ideas and they go back to their teams, they still have parents, they still have administrators, they still have players that need to be on the same page and speak the same language. So we started talking to everybody. And now we have a package of workshops where we speak to administrators, to coaches, to your parents over in the gym, and to you guys as well. It's not on.
Push the power button.
I have a couple of times.
There you go. Yeah, it takes a second.
Okay, go back.
So hopefully we put everybody on the same page and you start to talk the same language. We started up at Stanford University in a little itty-bitty office in their secondary gym by a guy who was a high school girls basketball coach. He was his son's Little League coach, and he was in charge of the global business program at Stanford all at the same time. And he decided to start this organization. We've since grown nationally. We have offices all over the place. We just opened 3 new offices this fiscal year. So it is kind of a movement that's having a greater impact as time goes on. And I'm really passionate about amateur sports, right? Youth sports, high school sports, college sports, and I'm entertained by professional sports. And what happens is that sometimes people mix those two things. Sometimes people think that those are all the same thing. Professional sports exist for a different reason. They exist for entertainment purposes, to make money for the people that are involved. And so their mission is a little bit different than ours. We're in a development zone in high school sports. We're still learning a little bit about ourselves, and that's one of the beauties of sports, is that at the end of the day we're going to find out that we've learned so many things that we can put to use in our regular lives, and we thought the whole time we were just playing a game. So that's why sports is important to me. And I'm pretty passionate about that. So every day I get emails, I get links sent to me, I tweet as well, so I get things coming across my Twitter page. About youth sports and some of the great things about youth sports, some of the challenges that we face in high school sports. And I'll open something up and I'll read a great piece about an act of sportsmanship, or I'll see a video clip that shows great school spirit from a place like the Cage. Right? You guys are awesome. Much respect for the Cage. And when I see stuff like that, I think sports is really good. I think sports is really good. And then another link will come across my computer about a hazing incident somewhere, a fight that happened somewhere else, a parent coming out of the stands, confrontation among coaches. And when I see that kind of stuff, I think sports is bad, right? That's not very good at all. And then I realize that great schools, great organizations, great places realize that whatever it is, it's just not good enough. And we got to do something a little bit better all the time. Even if we're already great at a place like Chaminade, even though we're already great, we got to find a way to do it just a little bit better. And that's how people stay great. So that's what we want to talk about tonight. How we're going to stay great while everybody else is trying to catch up. See, look at that. So, Mr. Jamiro gave us a little commercial, talked about me a little bit. I do a bunch of different things, as you can tell. And throughout the day, I have this is me moments all the time. I might be coaching, I might be at a meeting, I might be speaking in front of you. And during that whole time, I'm thinking, is this the me that I want you to see? And sometimes that's hard, right? Sometimes you walk into a place and you're tired, or you're not in a good mood, or you're not ready for what it is you're doing. You had a game last night down in Orange County, you had a long drive, and you got to be ready for school the first period. You got to decide, is this the me I want everybody to see? Am I going to walk in with my sweatshirt, my jacket over my head, and am I going to stroll through the halls, and am I going to look down in the dumps, and am I going to sit and slump in my chair, and is that the image that I want to project to the teacher? Or am I going to have a little bounce in my step and walk in and think, you know, teach me, I want to learn? Or am I going to show up at game time, and because I'm not playing, slump back in my chair and cross my legs? Or am I going to lean forward on my knees ready to go in? Right? Is this the me I want coach to see? Right? And if you're not feeling that way, sometimes you got to act as if you are. Right? Sometimes if you're not excited, if you're not interested, if the topic that's being taught in class isn't really your cup of tea, you got to act as if it is. And before you know it, right, you'll be interested. You'll have energy. You'll be ready to go. You'll be ready to go into a game. Right? So sometimes you got to act as if, some people say fake it till you make it, right? Kind of the same idea. Right? You got to talk yourself into being in the kind of mood you want to be, and you can do that in your everyday life. Right? If you don't feel like you're confident, I bet you if you act as if you're confident, you'll start performing a little bit better. I bet you if you feel like you can't guard somebody, if you start acting like you can, you'll be a little bit better. Right? So act as if you can, and before you know it, you will. Right? Don't show that body language where you're slumped over the desk or you're leaning forward. That's not what we want to see. Right? We want to see the kind of body language that you're ready to go and get after it a little bit. So part of it is what you're projecting. And sometimes messages get bombarded at you in many different ways, and sometimes you get the same message repeated over and over again from a lot of different people that don't even know that they're going to talk about the same thing. But I want to spend a little bit of time on social media, right? You're building your brand, right? Everything you do, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, things you post on YouTube. Right? We just talked about that, but that's your brand. That tells other people what you are and what you're interested in. The best brand that you could build is the brand of a student athlete. Right? A true student athlete, somebody that excels in the classroom and somebody that excels on the field or on the court. Right? Those are the kind of people that others want to attach themselves to, right? Whether it's popularity or whether it's down the line getting into college, getting hired, becoming an executive. Okay, ladies in the room, the statistics of Fortune 500 executives that are females that participated in sports in high school is astounding. Right? The things that you're learning now are the things that are going to translate into leadership later. Right? I have 3 older children, as was mentioned in the introduction. They all played multiple sports in high school. My 2 daughters played volleyball, basketball, softball, and my son played baseball and basketball. He went on to play baseball and basketball in college. My oldest daughter played basketball at the University of Redlands, and my youngest daughter ran track and field at Laverne. So, you know, they've been in your chair and have done some things beyond that. Throughout the night, I might share a couple of stories about those things that happened when they were exactly your age. But at the same time, they were involved in other things that helped build their brand, right? Being involved in clubs on campus, being involved in extracurricular activities. You're building the kind of resume that you want to go on and represent not only yourself, not only your family, but you got to understand you're representing something bigger than that, right? You're representing Chaminade. Everywhere you go. Right? People know that you're a student, you're an Eagle. So everything you post everywhere else represents them as well. And like it was mentioned, you might think it's quick, you might think it's going to erase in 10 minutes, you might delete it in a second. But what you put, I talked about social media, I mentioned the rule of 4. Right? Anything you put out there is for everyone, it's forever. And people are really slow to forgive and forget. Right? So like I said, pause before you post. I thought that was a great suggestion. But build the brand that's going to follow you where you want to go. My oldest son now is an assistant basketball coach at Pomona-Pitzer College. And the very first thing he does when he gets a letter of interest is he Googles that person, gets on their Facebook, and checks their Twitter and Instagram. And continues to do that throughout the recruiting process. You've all heard that story. It's true. Okay? So now let's get into the meat and potatoes of what we want to talk about a little bit, about athletics, about how we can become a better athlete. I want you to think about something right now, and what I'm going to do throughout the night is this. I'm going to challenge you to shift tasks a little bit, just like you have to do in athletics. Right? You compete, coach calls timeout, you got to come over and talk for a second, then you got to go over and compete. Right? You got to pay attention for a little bit, then you got to go out and get it done. I'm going to ask you to shift that attention a little bit tonight too. Right? What I want you to do right now is I want you to talk to the person next to you about either a current or former teammate that you admire. Maybe it is the person next to you, that's okay. But don't start talking yet. I need everybody's attention. Eagles, listen. I also want you to talk about why. Okay? So take about 30 seconds each, right? So a minute total, and talk about your favorite teammates. Okay, ready, go. About why those people are your favorite teammates, I want to discuss that a little bit deeper. Okay? I want you to look at a few photos of competition in various sports. Okay? And when we talk about these pictures, I want to discuss the qualities that you might see. Okay? One person at a time, right? So raise your hand, I'll call on you, and you answer, let everybody else talk. Just like in a huddle or during a timeout, if one person's talking, we can get a lot done. Right? If everybody's talking, we can't. What are some of the qualities that you guys talked about? I don't need names, but I need some of the qualities of your favorite athletes. Raise your hand, let's see. Right? Some of the qualities. Yes? What? No, your favorite teammate.
Okay.
She always gives 100%. He had leadership. Confident. Spirited. In the back. Hardworking. She had heart. Right? We'll talk about that, yeah. Will. Like the will to win. Okay, good. Stamina, loyalty. They were supportive of you. They were outgoing, humble, positive, good spirit. You were going to say positive too. They were confident. They were intense, driven, persistent, hardworking, intelligent. What's that? Didn't give up. Out of a lot of those, there's probably a bunch more. Out of all of those are qualities, right? Somebody said heart, right? What is heart? Well, you said heart? Did somebody tell me what heart is? Having a passion for what you do. Right? A lot of the things that were mentioned, right, probably you would call heart, right? Passion, intensity, hardworking, never give up. I mean, those are the kind of attributes that you might say someone has heart, right? But the reality, it isn't really your heart, is it? Right? If you all took biology, right, none of that is cardiovascular, right? None of that has to do with your heart pumping. What it has to do is your mind. Right? So when people say the heart of a champion, what they're really saying is that person has the mind of a champion. Right? They're mentally tough. Okay? So we want to talk about those things. What kind of things make you mentally tough and give you the mind of a champion and make you the kind of teammate that you want to be? So here are those pictures that we talked about. Let's look at these pictures. And we have 4 different pictures. We have picture number 4, the women's soccer picture. Guys football picture number 3. Got boys basketball picture number 2. And the girls basketball picture number 1. with the person on the other side of you, when I tell you to start talking, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take 2 minutes and I would like you to discuss those 4 pictures. And what I want you to discuss is what's going on in those pictures and what attribute or what quality the players in that picture are exhibiting. Does that make sense? You have 2 minutes. Ready, go. It's a TV timer. So now you had a little discussion about each of those different pictures and what they exhibit. Okay? Now I'm going to really challenge the Eagles here. We're going to vote. And what I want to vote on, and I'm going to tell you how we're going to vote, is I want to vote on which picture best represents the kind of teammate that you want to have on your team. Okay, hold on. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to go into different areas of the gym. So now listen to this. There's 150 people in here. Right? We've got to do this quick and we've got to do it organized. Right? And we got to do it in our best athletic, disciplined way. Here's what we're going to do. When I say go, if you think the women's soccer picture best represents the kind of teammate you want to have on your team, when I say go, you're going to end up in the back corner of the room over there in the far aisle. Hold on. If it's the boys football, I want you in the aisle on this side. If it's the boys basketball, I want you up front over here. And if it's the girls basketball photo, I want you up front over here. Okay? Everybody gets to vote your conscience. This is the United States. Right? Get to your spots. You got 30 seconds. So back there, we have the girls' soccer photo. Girls' soccer. Over here, we got the football guys. Boys' basketball up here. And girls' basketball over there. Okay. Now what I need you to do is I'm going to go to each area and I'm going to get an opinion. And you need to be quiet enough to hear that opinion. Okay? So hold on just a second. So back here, let's listen up. Back here we got the girls' side. I want to find out why they think the girls' soccer photo best represents this group has the most votes?
Well, most likely number 12 is offering
Okay? So what they think is that maybe number 48 fumbled or made a mistake, and number 12 is giving them some encouragement so that we got next time. So maybe he's getting on a little bit. What characteristics he's showing there? Communication, leadership. It's true. This group up front, we got the boys basketball. You gonna tell me why? No, you raise your hand, you gotta tell me why. Go ahead. Okay, group 3 in the back, let's pay attention, let's listen to this one. They said that sportsmanship, they're helping a teammate. But listen to this. If a player like that is going to show that much compassion for an opponent, imagine what kind of teammate he would be to his own teammates. Right? And then over here, we have the girls' basketball photo. What do you guys think?
Can I say that?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna say, in the girls' basketball photo, it looks like number 8 is much shorter than her opponent, but she's still not giving up, and she's still gonna fight and have the will to win, even though she has she's the underdog.
So she's going to fight, she's got the will to win, she's competing for the ball, even though she might be smaller. Right? The reality is just like exhibited here, we need to have all of those things. Right? We need to have all those things on our team. So now I'm going to see how fast we can get ready for game time again. Let's get back into our chairs. We got 30 seconds to do that. Go. Are you ready, or is there a delay game penalty? Okay. The reality is that we need to have all of those different things on our teams. Right? If you're a great competitor, if you're that person that somebody's going to talk about as being their favorite teammate, you're going to have all of those different things. Right? You're going to have commitment. You're going to have compassion. You're going to have fun, right? And you're going to compete, like in picture number 1. In picture number 1, if you were to look up the dictionary that said, you know, what competition was, they'd show something like that, because that's the physical act of competing. But sports isn't just physical. It's mental, too. So we got to have that part of the game. I want to talk about 3 different principles that are going to help you do 3 different things. If you are what we call a triple impact competitor, you can impact your team 3 different ways. You can work really hard to make yourself better. A lot of you guys do that, Right? You go to practice, you work hard. But are you contributing to the group and making your team better? Because you're doing one of those two things. Either you're bringing everybody up or you're bringing them down. Either you're making it better or you're making it worse. There's no in between. If you're giving your best, you're making it better. If you're giving less than your best, you're making it worse. And are you going to make the game that you're playing in better? When people come to see you play, are they going to enjoy that sport a little bit more because you're competing that way? Okay? So those are the three different principles that we want to talk about. We want to address them in a few different ways. Okay? The first one we want to talk about is winning. Right? Winning is important. How many people like to win? Let's watch this little video clip and see what we think.
Fellas, it's a good effort. Let me be clear about this. A good effort is not enough. Now, I'm proud of it. But I will not accept losing with you. Because there's only one thing they judge us on. There's only one thing people remember. And it ain't how we play the game. Winning is everything.
So is that true? Who knows a coach like that? I've played for coaches like that. But it can't be all about winning. Because if the only reason you play a sport, if the only thing that gives you enjoyment or validates your participation is whether or not you won or played well, more than half of the people are going to leave every day thinking that they didn't do enough. Right? Half the teams are going to lose, some of them are going to tie. Some of the winners didn't play well, so there's got to be something different besides just the scoreboard. Right? And that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about these two different definitions of competition, or these two different definitions of winning. Right? We can look at competition, we can look at sports through the scoreboard, or we can look through what I call mastery, right? Or your personal excellence. Right? Are you trying to do your very best? That's what we want to talk about. If it's only about the scoreboard, then all I'm looking at is the result. Did you win or did you lose? And if you won, that's good. If you lost, it's not good. It can't be that way. Right? It's not just about the scoreboard. It's about giving your personal best. It's about mastering personal excellence. And did you give your best effort? When people worry about the scoreboard too much, they worry about comparing themselves with others. Right? Did we beat that other team? What place are we in? What really starts to tear teams down is when people on the same team start comparing themselves to each other. Or their families or friends start comparing themselves to each other. Right? That becomes a negative situation and tears the team apart. And that doesn't really solve anything. Right? It doesn't really matter whether I'm playing one position instead of a position I would rather play, or whether I'm performing better, when the reality is our team doing well? What I should be worried about is, am I getting better? Am I learning? Am I improving? Right? That's what's really more important than the result or any of that comparison. And no matter how much effort I put in, no matter how much I learn, I'm going to make a mistake. Right? I'm going to mess up. And if the scoreboard is the only thing that matters, that's bad. Right? Mistakes are bad. Mistakes help you lose. Right? If I fumble on the goal line and didn't get a chance to score, that could hurt my team. If I serve it into the net, that could hurt my team. So if I'm only worried about the scoreboard, those things are bad. But if I'm worried about personal excellence, mistakes aren't bad. What are mistakes? They're opportunities to learn. Right? They're opportunities to learn. Now up there it says mistakes are okay. There are a couple of mistakes that aren't okay. Lack of effort is not okay. But that's not the mistake and how it hurts me on the scoreboard. That's the fact that you're not trying to give your personal best. And you should always give your personal best no matter what you're doing. Whether you're playing your sport, whether you're sitting in class, whether you're doing your homework. Right? That's one of the lessons that you learn through sports, is to give your best all the time. Because everybody else around you deserves it. But mistakes are learning experiences. Right? So I can learn from that. Maybe I mess up once, I can learn why, and I can get better the next time. Repeated mistakes are not okay. Right? When somebody tells you the same thing over and over and over and over again, and you make the same mistake, that's not okay. That means you don't care. That means you're not listening. A lot of times that means you're selfish and it's more about you than it is about your team. That mistake is not okay. If you've been told about policy, sportsmanship, guidelines, and you make that mistake over and over again, it's repeated, you didn't learn that. That's not okay. So let's fix it. Let's get better at that. Let's improve. Okay? Let's approach mastery and try for personal excellence. Okay? Here's something.
I want to talk about our opponent.
From that same movie. Does anybody know where that first movie was from? We Are Martian. Good movie, right? So this is later in the same movie.
I want to talk about our opponent this afternoon. They're bigger, faster, stronger, more experienced. And on paper, they're just better. And they know it too. But I want to tell you something that they don't know. They don't know your heart. I do. I've seen it. You have shown it to me. You have shown this coaching staff, your teammates. You have shown yourselves just exactly who you are in here. When you take that field today, you've got to lay that heart on the line, man. From the soles of your feet, with every ounce of blood you've got in your body, lay it on the line until the final whistle blows. And if you do that, we cannot lose. We may be behind on the scoreboard at the end of the game, but if you play like that, we cannot be defeated.
So what kind of contrast is that? What did he do for his players with that talk? Pumped them up? What? He motivated them? He gave them a little bit of confidence? He gave them a little bit of pep? What else? Anything else? Yeah, he gave them a little bit of hope, right? The other team is bigger, stronger, faster, more experienced. Anybody in the room going to play anybody this year that's bigger, stronger, faster, and more experienced? Yeah. So let's think about that for a second. Right? How are we going to overcome that? We can't do anything about the fact that they're bigger, stronger, faster, or more experienced. We can't control that. You're going to face people like that, and you can't allow that to determine what your night's going to be like. What you can control is your own personal effort, whether you're going to try to execute the things that you've learned, and are you going to be able to bounce back from mistakes. That's the kind of hope that he gave. Right? Or if we give our personal best, if we go out and do everything that we practice, we're going to be as good as we should. And we're going to get the result that we deserve. And that's really what we're talking about. Control the things that you can control. Can you decide to come to practice and try your best on a given day? Is that in your control? Yeah, you can decide that. That's something that you can control. Can you control whether you're going to sit and listen and try to learn from the coach? Can you decide that? Can you come to practice and say, I'm going to really try to listen today? Can you show up at class and say, I'm really going to try to listen and pay attention today? Right? Those are all things that are within your control. You can't control whether the other person's bigger, stronger, faster, better, more experienced. So forget about that part of it. Right? And only do what you can control. And when you're in control, that just makes you feel a little bit more confident. Right? It makes you feel a little less nervous and a little more confident. Try to get past that. I always like to put this picture up. That's my daughter in the picture. The blonde one. What are you laughing at? There we go. My screen was frozen. So she now is, she's Dr. Thomas, actually. While I was paying her tuition bills and she was in school to get her doctorate, she, my payment was going to be to go to the hospital and have them say, paging Dr. Lokar, and she got married. So now she's Dr. Thomas. I didn't even get that. But she told me something on graduation day. I'll share with you later. I think it's going to be important. Okay? So we want to focus on mastery instead of worrying about the scoreboard. Who's my middle blocker? We got volume middle blocker. Stand up. Stand up. So go ahead and stand up. What I want you to do is I want you to, just like you're blocking, I want you to reach as high as you can. Okay? Reach as high as you can. As high as you can. Okay, now reach a little bit higher. Reach a little bit higher. No. Sit down. You shouldn't have been able to do that. Right? What was the first thing? What was the first order? To reach as high as you can. Right? If someone asks you to reach as high as you can, you shouldn't be able to reach a little bit higher. If somebody asks you to run as fast as you can, you shouldn't be able to run a little bit faster. If somebody tells you to give the best effort you can, what are you going to do at crunch time? Right at the end of the game? Are you going to play a little bit harder? Who's going to play harder at the end of the game? No. You shouldn't be able to. If you were playing hard from the opening kickoff, from the first serve, from the beginning of the race, it wouldn't be close. Right? So you should try your best all the time, right from the opening tip. Right? You shouldn't be able to try harder. Who can read this one? Go for it.
We define leadership as the ability to make those around you better. This is accessible to everyone, not just the most charismatic or the best player. It is a requirement on our team that every player possess some leadership and try to make those around him better.
So everybody on the team can make those around them better. And show that kind of leadership. And if you're not doing your best to make those around you better, you're probably making them a little worse. You're probably not doing them any favors. So you need to contribute in that way. How many people, raise your hand without saying anything, just raise your hand if you're a leader. How many people are leaders? Okay, hands back down. Hands back down. How many people are followers? Okay, hands down. reality is we've got to be leaders and we've got to be followers. We just have to follow the right people at the right time. Anybody can be a leader, but leadership isn't yelling and screaming at somebody in the middle of a game. Leadership isn't telling them what they just did wrong after a play. What leadership is setting a good example. Doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it because it's the right thing to do. That's leadership. Then other people around you follow. What leadership is reminding people what might happen before the play so that you help them get a little bit better during the play. Which is way different than complaining about what they didn't do in the play that just happened. Right? One of them is leadership, you're helping make them better. The other one, you might be tearing them down and draining their emotional tank. And we'll talk about that in a second. Okay? So we got to make sure that we understand what leadership is, what leadership isn't, and who we should follow, and when we should do that. Now, as I get in my car to drive back home, which car would I rather be driving? Yeah, the one with the full tank. If I got a full tank, I'd go a long way. If my tank is empty, I've got to get off and fill up. Your emotions are like that too. Hey, think about when you go to practice and you've had a rough day. It's a little bit hard to follow along. You get a little pessimistic, right? You might give up a little bit easier. You might be a little less coachable. But when you've had a good day and things are going well, right? You're optimistic. You bounce back from failure a little bit better, right? Think of the people that you have on your team that you've seen in both of those different situations. They've had bad days, and they need picked up, like number 48 in the football picture, right? He needed a little bit of help. He was having a bad day, right? He needed his emotional tank filled. So some things fill your emotional tank, some things empty your emotional tank, and you're probably doing one or the other all the time. We want to get to a particular ratio on your team, and this is proven through all sorts of studies in school, in business, in sports, in relationships. When your team or when individuals have 5 times as many positive memories as they have criticisms and corrections, they perform better. Okay, so a 5-to-1 ratio, positive memories to criticisms and corrections. And we're all in this together, right? Teammates, coaches, parents, student body, we've got to try to reach that ratio together. So, it's the coach's job, it's the teacher's job, it's your parents' job to correct when they see something wrong. And that's a natural tank drainer. Right? When they correct you, sometimes you feel like they're picking on. That goes in the negative column. That's automatic. That's going to happen just because it's life. So we got to go out of our way to try to find times when we can fill their emotional tank. Right? If it's a tough day at practice and the coach is giving you a hard time or he's correcting you a lot, you're making a lot of mistakes, there's a lot of corrections, that's when you've got to pick each other up. And there's nothing you can do about what the coach is doing. so you need to make up for it. Okay, if we want to get to that 5-to-1 ratio, and there have been a lot of bad plays, a lot of correction, now that means our teammates have to find a lot of times to praise, and a lot of times to give encouragement, and a lot of high fives, right? And a lot of smiles. Okay, and we got to find a way to get that ratio back up. Then when we get in the car back home, on the ride back home, the message mom and dad are getting in the gym right now is the same thing. Right? It's not time to pile on and give more corrections. Right? Maybe it's a time to fix that ratio and try to get to that 5-to-1. Okay? You saw some books that were on the table. Some of you picked them up. Some of you will be able to get them later. There are some tips in there on how to fill each other's emotional tanks. One of them I'll talk about today that I think is really effective. I call it the buddy system. And it works in any sport. Right? Two people are warming up together. Maybe they're stretching partners. Maybe they're passing partners. Maybe they're shooting partners in basketball. And it's their job that day to be their buddy's tank filler. Okay? So you two guys are paired up at the beginning of practice. And it's your job to praise her every time she does something well. And it's her job to praise you when you do something well. Right? You can't correct each other. And everybody else is paired up, right, at the beginning of practice. You all have a partner. You all have a buddy. So now I'm going to take care of you all practice long, and I'm going to fill your tank. So when coach corrects you, it's not going to mess with that ratio so much, right, because I've been praising you the whole time. Then I'm building a habit. Right? I'm building a habit of praising my teammates. So I'm going to start praising people probably that aren't even my partner. And you've built a positive team culture that won't get down when the coach tries to make a correction. Okay? And then if we can continue that with our parents in the drive home, now we're in a pretty good situation. At the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the season, if we reach this 5-to-1 ratio, we're going to feel pretty good about what we're doing, and we're going to perform a little bit better. Okay? So that ratio is really something that I want you to think about in the back of your mind while you're going through practice and you're going through your seasons. Right? Be that person that's a tank filler for other people on the team. Be a leader that way. Right? When you see things going bad, pull out that positive attitude, right? And be that teammate that you talked about at the very beginning of the workshop. Right? Be that kind of person that somebody someday is going to say, you know what, this person is my favorite teammate. Right? So pull out those tools anytime you can. And again, in your book, there's some ways that you can look at that and go through and find different methods of filling somebody's tank. Before you even do that, right, there's probably somebody on your team that you know already that's down and needs their tank filled. Start that tomorrow. Right? Find that person and fill their tank tomorrow. The other person that's really important about emotional tanks is this. So the other thing that's important is this. Who can tell me what the golden rule is? You guys all know the golden rule? Yeah. Yeah. Do unto others as you have them do unto you. Right? That should be just our way of life. Well, I talk about the golden rule times 2. Right? Not only should I do unto others the way that I would have them do unto me, but I shouldn't ever say anything to myself that I wouldn't want someone else to say to me. You guys treat yourselves bad. Right? How many people have negative self-talk in the middle of practice or a game? They have doubts. I can't block this girl. I can't guard that person. I can't beat her in a race. I can't tackle that guy. I can't block that guy. Right? We all have those negative thoughts. Right? Those negative thoughts mess with your ratio too. Right? You're telling yourself that you're not so good. That's draining your emotional tank. That's not helping you perform. Right? Let's talk about some things that are going to help you perform in that situation. When you feel like you just can't. Right? I want to talk about the power of the big butt. With one T. does the word but do? Let me give you an example. I've had a bunch of practices, I've had a bunch of workshops, and this week is really, really busy. So if I went home to my wife and I said, honey, we're going to go out to dinner on Friday. And she came out ready to go, and I said, God, I really like those shoes and that dress is beautiful, but what have you done to your hair? That wouldn't go so well, right? Yeah, done. What did the word but do? It gives you an excuse. It negated everything before it. Right? Everybody listen to me right here, because this is really, really important. The word but erases everything before it. Think about when you get a compliment, right? Or when the coach praises you for something that you did, and then as soon as they say but, you're ready for the negative stuff, right? So, what I want you to do is learn how to use the word but for good instead of evil. Okay? Instead of tearing yourself down with negative self-talk, it's not really true. It's just a feeling. Right? Have you ever felt you couldn't block somebody? Yeah. Could you probably though? Yeah. So he felt like he couldn't block somebody, but he probably could. But he felt like he didn't, and that's okay, that you feel like it. So you, in your head, instead of saying, I can't block this guy, what you do is you think to yourself, I feel like I can't block this person. I feel like I can't tackle that person. But, right, and that word but just erased that feeling. And then you insert your coach's instructions there, right? I feel like I can't block this guy, but if I get low and keep driving, or whatever the coach's technique is for whatever the sport you're talking about, you'll be able to do at least better. Right? So use the word but to erase negative feelings and insert the proper instructions there so that you can be better. Okay? And then comes game time. Right? Time to compete. Time to get after it. Time when tempers get a little hot sometimes. I want to know if you're going to be ready to compete in a way that honors the game. Who else can read me this quote? Who's the coach that's up on the board? Herm Edwards. Yeah, Herm Edwards. Who wants to read this?
The game is sacred. It's a sacred field you walk on when you go to play. The game is forever. Players and coaches are not. When you're out on the field, you must remember your legacy and what you are representing.
And I think that's huge, right? From where we're at today. You need to remember what you're representing, right? You're not only representing yourself and your family, you're representing the high school that you compete for. And we need to honor the game in a certain way, right? You hear people talk about respecting the game. Who remembers this story? Pay attention, let's hear about it for a couple minutes.
In the middle of Washington State, on a field inside a chain-link fence, in a game fewer than 100 people saw. A home run memorable not for the distance it traveled, or the game it decided, but for the meaning it carried. As a senior, this was Sarah Tucholsky's last chance to win a championship. She'd never hit a home run before, not in college, not in her life. The top of the second inning was 2 runners on the second pitch. That changed.
So at that point, Sarah missed first base. She turned to go back and touch first base, planted wrong, and tore her ACL. She fell between first and second base. Her teammates couldn't help her up because then she'd be out. If they pinch ran for her, her run wouldn't count. This would have put her up 3-0. It's interesting what happened next.
That's when Central Washington's Mallory Holtman, a player with more home runs than any other in conference history, a player for the opposing team, spoke up.
I went to the home plate umpire and asked if we could pick up the carrier, and he looked at me a little strange. And she says, you hit the ball over the fence, you deserve it.
For that reason only, because she deserved it, Holtman and Wallace began to carry the injured Tucholsky, stopping to touch her left foot on each base as the three made their way around the diamond.
That's the first home run of the season for number 8, Sarah Tucholsky.
So that was a couple of years ago. Yeah, go ahead. And Mallory won an ESPY that year for the best moment in sports. And why did she do that? Why did she gave up a run. This was a playoff game. They were down by one more run. Why did she help her around the bases so that she would score? Said because she deserved it, right? She deserved it. She earned it. It was the right thing to do. And it's easy to do the right thing when you know that there's a reward at the end of the day. And it's kind of easy to do the right thing when you're worried about getting punished if you don't. But what we want you to learn is to do the right thing just because it's the right thing to do. Not because there's a reward or a punishment. Because it's the right thing to do. And you want to respect the sport. And we want to talk about some things that you should respect. Right? So we're going to finish up with this. We talked about the roots of sportsmanship or the roots of positive play. And we're going to give you 5 things that you should respect. And this is an acronym. What do you think the R stands for? What's the first thing about sports we need to respect? Respect the rules. Right? We got to respect the rules. Right? Rules of participation, rules of the game, rules of the sport. We've got to respect the rules. What do you think the O's stand for? Your opponents and who else? Your officials. You can have a healthy respect for your opponent. One of the downfalls of a lot of high school sports is when we lose respect for our opponents. I'm always impressed. I mentioned the cage earlier. At the balance that a lot of teams in the Mission League have between their school spirit, their creativity, and their respect for their opponent. Right? You can do all of those at once. Right? You don't have to demonize or hate your opponent in order to get up for the game or win. Without talking, raise your hand if you have brothers and sisters that you play games against at home. Right? Board games, sports games. Do you try to win those games? Yes. And some people say yes, even more so. Right? So I would say that you probably play harder against people that you respect, people that you like or love, more than people that you demonize or hate. So a healthy respect for your opponent will actually improve your performance. We also need to respect officials. Okay? Even when the call doesn't go our way, even when we disagree, we need to show respect for officials. When I said that people perform better when they get a 5-to-1 positive to negative ratio, what do you think officials get? Yeah, probably the reverse of that at best. Right? So go out of your way, try to find ways when you can fill an official's emotional tank too. What does the T stand for in roots? Team. Right? Here's this, listen. Respect your teammates on and off the field of play. right? On and off the court, on and off the field. Never do anything that's going to let your teammates down. Never embarrass your teammates. I can tell you right now, and I hope it doesn't happen, but if anybody in the room is not eligible in January, it's because they didn't respect their teammates in September. Because that's when it starts. Right? When you do something that's going to get you in disciplinary trouble, that might hurt you from competing on a team. You didn't think of your teammates when you did that. You didn't respect your teammates enough. Right? Don't do anything to let your teammates down. On or off the field. And that leads to the S. What is the S? You got to respect yourself. How many people have had a coach say, don't play down to the level of your competition? Yeah, right? Play your best no matter what the opponent is like. Behavior's the same way. Right? Set high standards of behavior and live up to those all the time. So if through sports you build a habit of doing your best, no matter what everybody else is doing, and behaving your best, regardless of what your peers are doing, right? At the end of the day, you've built some pretty good habits that are going to serve you well when you leave sports. Right? So perform your best all the time, behave your best all the time, regardless of what everybody else is doing. And then we're in pretty good shape. The question really is, are you going to be ready for your Mallory moment? Right? There's going to be something that you're faced with. It might not look like carrying somebody around the bases, but there's going to be a situation. There's going to be a teammate that needs help. There's going to be somebody on the volleyball team that is calling lines. And there's a really crucial call that's really, really close. And you've got to have the character to make the right call, even when it goes against your team. There's going to be a time when there's a tackle or a late hit or a collision or a brushback pitch or a foul. And how are you going to react to that? Right? We hope that you're going to react in a way that you will be remembered fondly. Because really, while you're competing, you should be wondering how people are going to remember you. Your teammates, your opponents, your teachers, the excluded classmate on campus. The little kid that's coming to watch you play. That wants to grow up to be just like you, whether you know it or not. Right? They're watching. How are your parents going to remember these days? And how will you be remembered?
If you pick up a ball or a stick or a club, it's very important that you become a triple impact competitor and have respect for the game. Sports has been around for a long time, and no one person, I don't care if you're Tiger Woods, I don't care if you're Michael Jordan, I don't care if you're LeBron James, no one person is bigger than the game that we play. And so everybody owes it to their sport to respect the game. How do you respect the game? You work hard. You don't try to cheat the system. You don't cheat the game. You don't cheat yourself. You don't cheat your teammates. You work hard every single day. You do the best you can. You do the best you can. And some days that's not going to be good enough. And that's the beauty of sports. And there's always tomorrow and a chance to get better. But I've always played to respect the game, and I play to win. Trust me, I want to win more than anybody. But I also want to win the right way, and that's just as important as the wins and losses.
we're really proud of our National Advisory Board members. We have some of the best players, coaches nationwide. I mentioned that pro sports is different, but a lot of it is the same. All those people talk about the very same principles, the ones that are really, really successful. So if you want to go to the next level, that's really what they're doing just as well. And these principles that are going to help you make yourself better, make your teammates better, and make the game you play in better are really what's going to allow you to advance that way, right? If you have the ambition to play at the next level, one of these three reasons is going to be why you don't get recruited. Right? If at the end of the day, you find yourself waiting for a phone call and you haven't gotten one, there's a pretty good chance it's because you didn't work hard enough to make yourself better, you're not a very good teammate, or you compete in a way that doesn't represent the kind of player that that school wants. All right, so try to be that triple impact competitor. Try to fit into all three of those categories. Try to be the kind of teammate that you guys talked about at the very beginning, and respect the sport, respect the game. A couple of things. There is plenty of resources on our website at positivecoach.org. There's links to videos that help you become a better athlete. There's a page of tools. So there's all sorts of things that you can do to interact. There's an Ask PCA portion where you can ask athletes. But we want to be a resource for our partners. We intend to be back a couple more times this year. What I would suggest is that we all be good leaders and take some of the information back to our teammates that weren't here and try to spread that very same message. I said earlier that that's my daughter in the picture. She's Dr. Heather Thomas now. She's a physical therapist. And on graduation day, she said something that was really, really special that I hope will underline your participation in sports. It was tough getting her doctorate. And she said, after long days, 12 hours in the lab, she said, I never would have made it if I didn't have to fight through shooting slumps and losing streaks. Shooting slumps and losing streaks. Right? Even when it's bad, that's a good thing. Right? You need to embrace the struggle and fight through that struggle. And then once you bust through that plateau, you don't know what kind of great things you'll be on to. Right? Good luck to you. Hope to see you again soon.
Hold on. Grab a seat, please, real quick. 20 seconds, please. Grab a seat. Let's be respectful and finish in a respectful way. Just grab a seat that's near to you. Gentlemen, let's grab a seat in the back, please. I want to thank Mr. Lokar for coming out. We have a plaque we'd like to present to him. It says, presented to Ray Lokar with sincere appreciation for your dedication to the Chaminade Athletic Department